Welcome to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. I am your host, Dr. Michael Lennox, and this is our premiere episode.
Woo!
Woohoo! Zoe, producer Zoe, is in the house. We are going to be here each week delivering to you the astrology of the week and dream interpretations from dreamers just like you out there in listening land. So if you're a dreamer and want dream interpretation, that's part of conscious embodiment. And each week we're going to get together and talk about the week's astrology first. Then we'll dive into dreams. And it is the first week in August. Are we ready to dive in, Zoe?
We are ready to go. I know that we have a little more than usual to talk about this week.
Yeah, it's a pretty busy week. All right, so we're in Leo season, which of course I love because I'm a Leo sun. This is my birthday month. So when we're in Leo season, we're in consideration of our creative expression, our personal sense of what the gifts and talents are that we each have as individuals, and celebrating that idea of having a focus of your creative gifts, what you bring to the world. And when the sun moves into this sun-ruled sign of Leo, that's really what our general consciousness focus is. How we start August off is with a little bit of a bang from Mercury. Mercury and the sun, right on August 1st, are coming together in what's called the superior conjunction of the sun and Mercury. This is something that happens between the sun and Mercury, both in every Mercury retrograde cycle, but also in this time of Mercury cycle where there is no retrograde in sight. I call this the free and clear portion of Mercury's movement. So it's actually a great time to teach about this a little bit, because when Mercury and the sun come together, it's an important guidance moment. We receive downloads of directional sort of consciousness, because sun is conscious awareness. Mercury is our navigating mechanism. And when they come together, it's an important moment of awareness and ideas that come out of our sense of, integrated self. Now, of course, when Mercury is retrograde, this moment is hugely important because Mercury moving backward is like him visiting the unconscious, right? So he's in territory out of our conscious awareness. And so when the planet of thinking, thought, and communication meets up with our planet, not really a planet, the sun, the body of our conscious awareness, while he's retrograde, it becomes an important moment of like aha and awareness while we're in an unconscious process. So that awareness has, real value and is harder to find because Mercury's in an unconscious, place. But Mercury and the sun come together in the other portion of Mercury's cycle where he's not retrograde. And both of these conjunctions have a name. When it's outside of the retrograde, like it is now, it's called the superior conjunction of Mercury and the sun. When Mercury's retrograde, which she will be in a couple of months, so we will talk about this again as part of that cycle, it's called the inferior conjunction. And that really has to do with like what side of the sun Mercury is on relative to the Earth's position. But it's still the same sense of these two bodies that govern how we perceive our world coming together for a download of guidance, information that's important to us about our path and our movement forward. Sun is our conscious awareness. Mercury is our thinking mechanism. And while they are related to each other, that is not the same thing. The sun burning bright in the center of our solar system is just like the sun of our personality burning at the center of each of us, where then Mercury isn't that centered sense of self. Mercury is the little navigating mechanism that's always chatting with us about where we're going and, what's happening in our experience. So, in fact, our thinking is so much not our conscious awareness that one of the things that happens when you step onto the spiritual path is you really want to learn the difference between the center of yourself as a perceiving, mechanism. And that Mercury thinking part of you is really an add on. It's the navigator that's there to tell you turn left, turn right, look both ways before you cross the street. We over identify ourselves with our thoughts and our thinking, and that's not the best way to move through life. Don't believe everything you think, kids. That's sort of that's if there's anything to be said about Mercury and the sun coming together, it's a moment where we do recognize that there is a distinction between who we are and how we know ourselves, sun consciousness, and what we think, how we navigate, how we communicate, and how we interact. Solar transits, Mercury transits have an influence of about 2 or 3 days. So, what this means is that August 1st is the day of the peak of conscious awareness and thinking in a kind of alignment. But there'll be an influence sort of the day before as we lean into that moment and for at least a day or so after. Mercury is ultimately a trickster archetype. If you know anything about Mercury in mythology, he was a tricky little mother. He definitely liked to play around and play games, just like our minds do. And so when we have a moment when we know that our conscious awareness and our thinking mechanism are joining together and there's going to be information for us, it's important to be aware that some of that information is going to come sideways. Mercury is not always direct. So I'm talking about the power of synchronicity, of, you drive past that billboard just as you're thinking about the thing that the billboard is expressing. And you're like, I must be on the right path. Look for ways in which happenstance, coincidence, and sideways communication might be giving you some information about where you are on your path as this week and this month begins. Interestingly, this superior conjunction of the sun and Mercury come together in an exact opposition to Saturn. It's another reason why it's a good idea to be paying attention as we move into August, because this mechanism that allows for guidance and information to come through us has all the more seriousness and importance because the opposition to Saturn, the great teacher. When energies oppose each other, something has to happen. Two energies are going to crash or dance or swerve. So in this case, it's about our conscious awareness and our thinking in a confrontation with the part of us that is the teacher, the wise one. So we can think of Saturn as a planet out there that, as he moves about, causes us delays and breakdowns and lessons. And he's got a terrible rap as the taskmaster. But if you think of Saturn as an archetype that lives inside of each of us, then Saturn's archetypal energy is the wisest part of you. And so the thinking part of you and the conscious awareness part of you is getting together for a little bit of guidance, wisdom, and important information. And the teacher across the way says, really sit up and pay attention. There's more importance to the information that might be rising up as this early part of the week plays out because of Saturn's participation. Everything counts. Let's talk a little bit about Jupiter, because Jupiter, the planet of expansion, abundance, prosperity, and good fortune, has been pretty active. It's actually last week that he retrograded back into Aquarius from Pisces, about the 27th of July. But there's a lot of shift and change as a result of him moving back into Aquarius. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the great expander that Jupiter is, the distinction of having him move through Pisces for a couple of months this year, and now going back into Aquarius for the next 5 months or so. Because that makes a very big change with regard to how we each relate to the process of manifestation, our relationship to abundance and prosperity, and anything that we're working on in our lives that might look like something we want to put out into the world that we will get joy and sense of expansion out of. That's Jupiter's territory. For the last couple of months, Jupiter has been in Pisces. Pisces is actually a sign that Jupiter used to rule in classical astrology. Back before we discovered some of the new planets, there were just less planets to deal with, and everybody had to rule like two signs. So Jupiter ruled Sagittarius, but also Pisces. And so when Neptune was discovered, astrology community decided to put the rulership of Pisces into Neptune's domain, which was the right choice. Neptune, the god who ruled over the oceans, is the perfect and right ruler for Pisces. But if you think about classical astrology as having some impact on how we view the planet today, we still have a sense that when the planet of expansion and abundance is in the sign of Pisces, he is more powerful. Now, why might that be archetypally? Pisces is the energy of the potential to create anything and everything. Nothing in form did not start out as formless, where ideas then come crashing through and we create form, but we've got to start with potential. Pisces is the sign that represents the idea that at some point everything is in potential. So when Jupiter, the planet that helps us create bounty and expansion and abundance, is in that sign, can think of your manifestation mojo as something that's emerging from inside of you. Impulses to create must come from the unconscious because that's where Pisces dwells. Because Pisces is a water sign, we're going to be more emotionally connected to how we create and manifest because of that placement of the planet of manifestation in a water sign. Now, Jupiter moved into Pisces back in May. So that means that all of May, June, and July had the planet of manifestation in this sort of amplified territory of Pisces. But May was when the shit show started. Like May and June were crazy with eclipses and retrogrades and all kinds of energetic kerfuffle that might have taken projects that you were working on or things that were important to you that required a sense of expansion and manifestation. Things might have gotten interrupted because of all of the crazy energy that May and June forced us to move through. So one of the things that may happen with Jupiter now retrograding back into Aquarius is that energies and projects and focuses that came about when Jupiter was in Aquarius before May of this year may return or become amplified in your focus. If there were delays that happened because of Jupiter either changing signs or going retrograde, this jipping back of Jupiter into Aquarius might return issues, projects, and focus that was in your early months of 2021. You might get to revisit and breathe some life back into those desires. Perhaps the biggest shift, though, with Jupiter moving out of Pisces and back into Aquarius is how we approach manifestation and creating the desires of our hearts and the wishes for life to be more bountiful. Aquarius is the innovative sign, the out of the box thinking, the it happens in an unexpected sort of way. It's an intellectual sign. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. Uranus is considered the higher octave of thought, of mind, like a mind with a capital M. So Jupiter moving into Aquarius has as his sort of ruler, like who's looking over his shoulder, is the planet Uranus. That's called disposition. So the planet of expansion moving into Aquarius again means that the power of Uranus gives Jupiter his marching orders of like style, how to approach manifestation for the next 5 months or so needs to be in that territory of innovative, unexpected, out of the box thinking, trying something new, taking risks, and waiting for inspiration to drop in from above. So when Jupiter is in Pisces, the dispositional ruler of that is Neptune, the God consciousness, the owner and ruler of the unconscious, where you've got to wait for ideas to bubble up from the inner recesses of you. Jupiter in Aquarius allows us to download our inspiration from higher places of intellect and inspired ideas. So, the last thing I want to say about Jupiter in Aquarius is just a nod to the fact that he is retrograde. I don't put a whole lot of stock in planets going retrograde, social planets and outer planets going retrograde as having some outrageous, significant difference in how they operate. Now, social media memes might speak otherwise, and you might hear a message that says, Jupiter is retrograde, therefore manifestation is delayed or slower or turns around or focus on the inner, not the outer. Those messages aren't inaccurate. It's just that in my little body that processes energy in such a sensitive way, which is, I think, why I was drawn to becoming an astrologer. I have never, not in 25 years of being connected to the movement of the planets, ever felt in my body and in my embodiment a huge distinction between Jupiter being direct and Jupiter being retrograde and it having some wild impact on whether things happen in the outside world or they are delayed. It is true that the planet is moving backwards and that has meaning. Backward movement in my language means there's a deeper connection to our unconscious impulses than our conscious awareness. And that's really valuable for manifestation consciousness because we can't create anything unless we have a deep inner mental and emotional equivalent to having it. You can't create anything unless you feel you deserve it. And that happens on the inside. And so it is probably somewhat accurate to say that Jupiter retrograde allows us to tap more directly into our inner equivalence of what we desire, to tap into our inner heart and mind and say, this is what I desire. This is what it will feel like to have. And I am marshaling all my resources in that direction. And Jupiter will stay retrograde until like the middle of October. Then he'll turn around and head back into Pisces at the end of the year. And of course, we'll talk all about that when those shifts occur. So I'm going to talk about the next new moon, both in today's podcast, but I'll probably start next week's podcast talking about it a little bit too, because it happens on August 8th. It's August 8th, 6:50 a.m. That's Pacific Daylight Time for any of you who want to ritualize a new moon. It's important to know the time of the lunation because it's really the hours that lead up to the exact moment of the sun and moon coming together. That's the real sort of juicy time to set intention. So when the sun, our conscious awareness, and the moon, our unconscious impulses, are in the same place, that's when it's the most beneficial moment to plant those seeds of intention in that dark, fertile soil where everything can germinate because it's held in sort of, dark wetness. But it's in the hours that lead up to the sun and the moon coming together that are darker, richer, more fertile. So if you want to ritualize your intention settings for this Leo new moon that happens on August 8th at 6:50 a.m. Pacific time, you might want to put your ritual into play on the night before. Want to be really clear about something. you can't miss this opportunity. Because that's the thing that people write to me all the time. They're like, did I miss it? Did I miss the intention setting moment? It's like, no, no, no. Every moment is an opportunity to set intentions. Yes, it is darker, richer, more fertile before the lunation than it is after, but not in such a way that's like you missed your train station. In fact, people will ask me all the time, do we only set intentions in the new moon? It's like, no, you set intentions with every breath you take, not just at the new moon, but at the new moons, the solar system is setting us up to set intentions. So we meet that moment ritually because the system is saying this is the moment to think about intention. So, yes, be creating your intentions in your life every moment of your life. But when the sun and the moon are coming together, do it as a ritual. Because the sun and the moon are both in Leo, this is a new moon that's all about your personal self-expression. Leo invented taking your gifts and talents and sharing them with the world in a big way. It's the here I am doing my dance moment. And that's the intentions you want to be setting at this time is what's your dance? What's the thing that brings you the most joy? Leo invented joy. That sign has rulership over children, play, creative expression of all sorts. Sex itself is an invention of the Leo mansion. From the celebratory, joyful experience that sex is. In terms of the archetypal inventor of anything joyful in life, that's Leo. That's what you want to be thinking about when you approach this intention setting moment. What brings you joy? How can you have more of it in your life? There's a fabulous pattern in the sky at this new moon called a finger of God. Also, finger of fate for those of you who maybe you don't like the G word. I use the G word. God is the best word for me to represent everything that I'm not, but that lives through me. That's God, as far as I'm concerned. So I will use the term finger of God anytime this long, narrow triangle shows up. So a finger of God is when two planets are relating to each other in the very productive angle, 60 degrees. It's called a sextile, and it offers the potential for two energies to bring the best of what they have to offer to each other in a kind of shared effort. And in this case, the sextile that's being held loosely in the sky right now is between Neptune, the great spirit, and Pluto, the great transformer. Neptune connects us to our God consciousness, and Pluto makes sure that we don't leave out the power and authority that's buried in the shadow. And if you haven't gone and visited your shadow to integrate some of that power and authority into your consciousness, it's Pluto that will kick your ass to make sure that you don't miss looking into the abyss of your shadowy void. These two planets are so juicy because one connects us to God above and one connects us to the depths of our soul. And with them holding this loose sextile, there's a productivity and potentiality of diving into our sense of power and authority, keeping connected with our God consciousness. And then across the sky is the new moon, hitting each of those planets in the 150-degree angle known as the Great Eliminator. So in this way, the new moon intention settings is looking over at our spiritual consciousness and saying, what do I need to eliminate so that I can live a life that is more aligned with not only the things that bring me joy, but how I can connect that joyful expression to my spiritual sensibilities? Is there anything I have to drop or let go of or eliminate in order to have a loftier spiritual connection with my joyful expression? The inconjunct from the new moon to Pluto is, what do I have to let go of that inhibits my owning my own power? This is actually a profound aspect of this new moon because Leo is the archetype that owns its own power unequivocally, right? So the Leo new moon hitting Pluto in this great eliminator angle is like picking up your disowned sense of you're the authority of your life. Put two of these inconjuncts together, and that's where you get the finger of God or the finger of fate. So, this idea of this navigating mechanism of the finger of God that says small choices we make now can lead us into very different territory down the line, because that's the nature of a finger of God or a finger of fate. There's real legs and power to the intentions we set at this time, especially if you honor that Leo sensibility of what are the gifts that only you have to bring, that you are fully aware of and ready to let shine in a much brighter way. Put that into your intention settings and have at it.
All right, it's dream segment time. Every week, Dr. Michael will interpret dreams that are sent in via email or take a live caller. If you would like your dream interpreted on the podcast, you can go ahead and email us at dreams@michaellennox.com. Hopefully your dream will make it onto the show.
And we got a couple for today?
We do. Yeah, we have a couple emailed and we also have a live caller today as well.
Woo, love that. Yay.
All right. So Charmaine writes, hello, Zoe. I have a dream. I was in Greece where we got engaged and it looked totally different than how I remember it. There were some people there that I kind of knew, but not really. Then I saw myself hugging this birch tree, like really hugging it. It felt right and it felt strong, unwavering, and like it was holding me instead of me hugging it. It was a tall tree and you could see the white bark on the outside. The hug felt gentle yet strong. Then I woke up. I'd love to know what Dr. Michael thinks of this. Thanks, Charmaine.
Yeah, Charmaine, loving this. First of all, we're back to an originating event, right? We're back to a place, where they got engaged, only it looks different. I'm guessing, Charmaine, that your marriage looks a little different, right? So we're in a thought about time passing, coming back to this originating perspective of here's where we got engaged, yet everything is different. So there's some element of the dream, I think, that is speaking to the shift that might be happening or occurring in the relational dynamic, simply because the dream starts out with we're in Greece, it's where we got engaged. But then it's this tree thing, this tree experience, which to me reminds me of the tree of life, a sense of continuity. The idea that the tree is embracing you, Charmaine, is beautiful because it's like a surrender of an acceptance of life growing at its own pace and holding you as it goes, as opposed to you hugging the tree, turning it around. That's a beautiful image. I'm sure there's probably birch associations we could look into that I'm not in a position to do right now because I'm not a master at tree meaning. But I love that it's a white birch, right? So that the white color of the tree even sort of emphasizes the higher consciousness vibe of this moment. There's also something about trees and family trees, and the engagement might have led to creating a family. I'm guessing for this dreamer, it's possible, or might one day create a family. And tree and family tree is a very, big sort of image relational thing, trees and family tree. And so it's natural for me to think about tree as a tree of a family tree because the dream starts with an engagement and a relational consideration. But most importantly, and this dream is so juicy and rich, for that tree hugging you back, Charmaine.
That feels
right?
so beautiful.
Isn't that beautiful?
Like that imagery. Absolutely.
Life does embrace us, even though life is brutal and sometimes feels extraordinarily precarious. It will ultimately hold us in its embrace if we can allow that and to not judge the process. Beautiful dream. Beautiful dream.
Wonderful. All right. Dream two. This one's from Arnie. And she says, I was walking in nature with my husband and son. They were a little ahead of me.
More family. I love this.
More family and more
Right.
nature.
Yeah, right. Nature.
Yeah.
Husband and son. All right.
Husband and son. And so they were walking a little ahead of me, and I see a black snake on the path. I'm not afraid, but it jumps up to attack me, and I hit it back with my arm. The following night, I wake up from a dream that a white snake was about to bite my face. Are these dreams connected? Is it a message that my subconscious mind really wants me to understand, and that's why it's repeating? I'd appreciate the feedback, Erin.
Oh my God, are they connected? Of course they're connected. First of all, the snake imagery is beautiful that one is black and one is white, right? So in the two dreams, we're looking at both sides of light. Of light. Both sides of life, the dark and the light. And snakes are sort of the classic symbol of change and transformation. Every third grader in the Western world learns that snakes shed their skins. And the idea that we have this animal that can grow its new skin underneath the surface and have the old one just pop off when the new one's ready is a symbol of how change and transformation works. Change is always something that's taking place on the inside, outside of our view or our ability to see and know that the change has occurred. And then bam, in 1 minute, it can happen. And the efforts one puts into change and transformation can suddenly reveal the new skin, and the old skin sloughs off. So snakes are the perfect symbol of life is changing. And of course, because we're walking in nature, we're in a dream that's about this dreamer's Erini, was that her name?
Yes.
This dream is about Eriny's personal path through life. Like if she was driving her car in the dream, it would be a dream about her moving about, the more social and businessy and community aspects of her journey. But because it's a natural path in the woods, she's thinking about her intimate walk with her own life, but as a member of a family with a husband and a son. So she's in that consideration. And then black snake means it's changing in a shadowy sort of way, and white snake means it's changing in a light sort of way. And the two dreams together is whole and complete. I'm thinking of the yin yang symbol.
Oh, totally. I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Well, and there's also a symbol in snake world called the Ouroboros, the image of a snake swallowing its own tail and representing the sort of alpha omega cyclical consciousness that never ends, that on one hand represents infinity, but also abundance and change and transformation, and the idea that life and death are one sort of thing. And if you take that Ouroboros snake swallowing its own tail image, and you can easily turn it into a yin yang symbol.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? You following what I'm doing there with my words, like the image, the snake.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, all right, you got
and
it. All right,
our listeners can't see your hands moving, but,
but you can.
Your hands are going in circular motions, and I'm just imagining like a yin yang spinning or a snake, just going around in circles.
Right. I love the idea that it was on one night and then another night, because that to me indicates the power of the unconscious desire to express itself to Erini at this time is so strong. The day in between the two dreams couldn't even interfere with the unconscious's desire to present these two images. That's a solid relationship with the unconscious.
Beautiful.
For Erini. So yay. Change is happening, but it's in balance and wholeness and integration and completeness. Beautiful dream.
Wonderful. Thank you, Erini. Michael, I have a question actually about reoccurring images, or rather reoccurring people.
Sure.
I was thinking this week, I'm thinking our dream segment is coming up, and I remember a reoccurring dream that I had for about 5 years. There were slight variations, but it was one of my ex-girlfriends would come and I used to say haunt my dreams.
Dramatic, Zoe. I
And
love that.
I know it was like
Yeah.
totally an absolutely dramatic statement, but it lasted for 5 years and it wasn't every
Wow.
night, but
Right.
periodically my ex-girlfriend, even after I had dated someone else and moved on, and I swear, I'm not just saying, oh yeah, I moved on. I had really
Right. You moved
with my
on. I
life.
got it. You really moved on. Uh-huh.
Fully, but she would come into my dreams
Yeah.
and I wouldn't know when. I couldn't find I couldn't find a why. It wasn't like every time I eat a hamburger or, go to La Brea where we used to hang out or something. What's up with that?
Well, there's a whole brand of relational psychology called imago psychology, and I'm going to use that to explain this, that each of us human beings have inside of us a kind of, the Latin word is imago, an image, the inner image of a beloved that we carry around. It's an archetypal perspective that I have inside of me a beloved idea. If I meet somebody else where their imago, their inner image of a beloved fits me across the room and mine fits them across the room, that's called a relationship. So this is what's important in terms of answering your question. The imago or image is now, when you're in relational consciousness, the image is connected to the literal woman who was your girlfriend. So even though you broke up and moved on, there was still a powerful image inside of your head that says, Zoe's love object looks like her. So the dreams that you're having about your ex 5 years later, when you are fully feeling like you are over it, they're not about her. They're about your receptivity to the possibility of relationship. And if there's still more either healing needed or reflection about who you are relationally, that dream might be helping you process stuff about who your perfect beloved is and the shifts and changes you need to make in order to attract a higher, better version of beloved. But the dream imagery isn't going to be like, oh no, don't make it look like her because Zoe is over her. The dream consciousness just says, what's the easiest, quickest way to get Zoe to know that we're talking about, their relational life? And it'll look like her
And it'll
until
go,
it stops looking like her.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's wild. I was 21 years old. I started transitioning in that relationship.
Relationship?
Yeah, in the middle of that relationship.
Right
I was
there,
in love.
baby, honey.
All of that just all got put together right now. The puzzle fell together.
Oh,
because I didn't even think about that. Why her?
Yeah, why her? Because she's the imago that you entered that relationship in one sort of state. And by the time you entered it, you were transformed quite literally through beginning your transition. So then she becomes even more powerfully about who is inner Zoe's image of a potential beloved. And so the dream is those dreams are just helping you prepare for the next one.
Thank you. That light bulb went off like a couple days ago and I was like, I need to bring this in.
No, I love when you bring dreams. So I love when you bring personal dreams, and I think the audience does too. So thank you.
Okay. So we do have someone calling in today, which I'm really excited about. And we have Tammy. I know Tammy has been a member of one of your dream circles before. Welcome, Tammy.
Well, hello. Happy to be with you today.
Yay. Thanks, Tammy. Thanks for coming.
Hi, Dr. Michael.
Woohoo.
So, guys, I've had a dream. I'd really like input on this. It's not very quick, but it really caught my attention. May I share?
Yeah. Oh, God, yes.
Absolutely.
This was fresh off the press this morning. So in my dream, I was in my safe place. I'm using air quotes, which is a room in my house. Except in the dream, I'm confused because the room is all beige and I love color. So as I sit down to meditate in this room, I'm noticing that the wall opposite me has bubbling paint. as though there's water damage happening right now. And then I notice that the carpet edge is coming away from the wall and the room's beginning to tilt. And I'm thinking, I got to get out of here. So as I get up to make for the door, a hand grabbed at my sheet, like in real life. And I pulled in enough air to yell no, and I woke myself up, and it sort of freaked me out. Can you help?
Yeah, can I help? If you needed some help, Tammy, I could help, but I don't know that you need help. What I am curious about, though, is this, I love this, air quotes, safe place.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't sound very safe in the dream. So one thing that just makes me sort of want to ask, is there a consciousness of overprotecting yourself that maybe you're done with and ready to be more risk of, taking or something?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll own that.
Well, even just the simple theme of I have a thing called a safe place. And it's not safe. It's tilting, it's dirty, it's bubbling up in the paint, which means that's no longer in integrity. And it's beige, honey, which means it's not serving you. It's not in alignment with vibrancy and color and passion and movement outside in the world. Safe often means, well, I don't know how to, safe is good if you need to be protected, but it also limits everything else.
Holy cow. Yeah. Yes to all that. Yes to all that. Yes to all that.
This hand, though, that's just crazy.
I didn't
So
like it.
I'm assuming what you mean is you felt a physical sensation as you were waking up.
I felt the physical sensation, and that's why I woke up.
Wow. I don't know that I have any interpretation of that other than the clear importance of the dream, that the psyche gave it an extra something. Right? Because I think it does that. Like nightmares are, more memorable. I think the brain does that on purpose.
Well, then what that makes me notice is that I yelled no loud enough to wake up. Could there be some resistance to leaving
absolutely.
the safe place?
Think about that. What if the hand is reaching in to sort of yank you up into some new exciting adventure? Get out of bed, wake up, get moving. And there's a, no, I need to be in my safe place.
Oh, hilarious and all true. Yeah, I think you're right. I'll take that. Thank you.
Tammy, thanks so much for calling in and sharing your dream with us.
Oh, thank you for the help, you too. Take good care.
That's our show for today. Are there any announcements for this first week in August?
Absolutely. It is the first week of the month, and this is when I'm going to be doing my monthly global healing meditation, Thursday night, 7 p.m. Pacific time in my Zoom space. The announcements will be everywhere on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, but really the best way to get all announcements for me is to go to michaellennox.com and join my mailing list.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. You can find us on Apple Music, the iHeartRadio app, and anywhere you find your favorite shows.